The colony street was busy that evening. Traders shouted about their goods. Lights from small stalls flickered, and the air was filled with the smell of smoke and dust. Aliens of many shapes and colors walked past each other, but no one really looked at anyone. Everyone seemed too busy with their own lives. And then, a sound broke the noise. A sharp cry. A desperate voice, a child's voice. "Please, someone help my mother, she won't wake up." The words rang out across the street, cutting through laughter, shouting, and footsteps. An alien boy no older than 10 stumbled into the center of the road. His small hands were trembling, his face streaked with tears. His eyes, wide and glowing faintly in the dim light, searched the faces around him with pure fear. He shouted again, his voice cracking. "She won't wake up. Please, please, somebody help my mother." But the crowd only slowed down for a moment. Heads turned, whispers rose, and then, just as quickly, people looked away. One alien muttered to another, "That family, cursed, best not to get involved." Another hissed under her breath, "Weak bloodline, not worth saving." The boy fell to his knees in the dirt, his chest heaving as sobs shook his body. "Please, she can't die. Not her, she's all I have." And still, no one moved. Among the crowd there was one human, a man who had only recently arrived in the colony. He was not rich nor powerful, just an ordinary traveler with tired eyes and worn clothes. He stopped walking when he heard the cry. His heart tightened. Around him, everyone else was pretending not to hear, pretending not to care. The boy looked up, his eyes meeting the humans. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Dust hung in the air, the lights flickered, and the boy whispered in a voice almost too weak to hear, "Please, help me." The human stepped forward. Gasps rose from the crowd. A few aliens pulled back, whispering, "Foolish human, don't touch that family's curse." But the man ignored them. He crouched down in front of the boy, his voice calm, though his chest was heavy. "Tell me, what happened?" The boy grabbed his arm tightly, his small fingers cold and shaking. She just collapsed. I tried to wake her, but she doesn't move. She's still breathing, but her eyes won't open. Please, sir, please come with me." Tears ran down his cheeks. His voice cracked with terror. "Everyone else, they just walk away. But she's my mother. I can't lose her, I can't." The man nodded slowly. He didn't waste time asking more questions. "Take me to her." "Show me where?" The boy's relief was so strong it almost made his legs give out. He clung to the human's hand and pulled him through the crowd. No one followed. In fact, people stepped back, shaking their heads, whispering curses. But the man didn't let go. As they moved away from the busy street, the sounds of trade and chatter grew faint. The path became darker, emptier. The boy's breathing was fast, his small feet stumbling as he ran ahead, dragging the human with all the strength he had. "Please hurry," he begged. "She's so cold. I tried covering her, I tried giving her water, but nothing works. I don't know what to do." The human's jaw tightened. He had seen fear before. He had seen loss. But something in this boy's voice, something raw and desperate, made his chest ache. The boy's voice broke again as he whispered, "If she dies, I'll be alone. There's no one else. Just me and her." The human didn't answer. He only tightened his grip on the boy's hand, silently promising himself that he would not let the child face this pain alone. They reached a narrow alley. Shadows stretched, long across cracked walls. A broken door hung crooked on rusted hinges. The boy stopped here, panting, pointing with a trembling finger. "Inside," he whispered, his eyes filled with tears again. "She's in there." The man looked at the dark doorway, then back at the boy. The child's face was pale, his lips trembling. Fear and hope mixed in his eyes. For a brief moment, the human wondered, why had no one else come? Why had the entire colony turned its back on this boy and his mother? The whispers of curses and weak bloodline returned to his mind, but he pushed them away. It didn't matter. A life was a life, and no child should have to cry alone. He placed a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. "Stay close to me." The boy nodded quickly, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. His small frame shook with every breath. Together, they stepped toward the broken door. The air inside the alley was colder, heavier, and carried a strange, bitter scent. The human felt the weight of silence pressing around them, as if the house itself was holding its breath. And for the boy, every step felt like walking closer to either hope or heartbreak. The boy's cries had not ended in the market street. Even as he pulled the human's hand, his small voice kept breaking the silence of those who had chosen not to act. "Please, somebody, my mother needs help," he shouted again, though his throat was already raw. But the crowd only moved aside, letting them pass as if they carried some kind of sickness. Eyes followed them, cold, sharp, and filled with judgment. One merchant shook his head and muttered loudly, "That family was always trouble. Best to leave them to their fate." Another woman hissed, "Why should we risk ourselves for her? Her kind brought this on themselves." A group of younger aliens laughed quietly, mocking the boy's desperate cries. "Look at him," one sneered, "crying like a weakling. No wonder his mother has fallen." The boy heard every word. Each cruel whisper struck him like a stone. His chest tightened, and he stumbled, almost falling to his knees. But the human caught him, steadying him with a firm hand. "Don't listen to them," the human said softly. Tears spilled again as the boy whispered back, "They all hate us. They always hated her." The man didn't answer. He only looked at the faces in the crowd, faces that refused to meet his eyes, faces that turned away quickly whenever he glanced at them. Not one person stepped forward. Not one person offered to help. The boy gripped the human's sleeve tightly. His small hand shook with fear. "Will you really come, or will you leave me too?" The question cut deep into the man's heart. He could hear the boy's voice breaking with doubt. The child had been let down too many times, and now, even in his darkest hour, no one from his own people cared enough to help. The human's reply was simple. He didn't use big promises. He didn't swear oaths. He just squeezed the boy's hand and said, "I'm here." That was enough for the boy. The path grew quieter as they left the main square. The market noise faded behind them, replaced by the sound of the boy's uneven breathing and the human's steady footsteps. The further they went, the darker the streets became. Cracks ran along the walls of half-broken homes. Many doors were shut tight, windows barred, as if the people inside wanted nothing to do with the world beyond. The boy glanced back once, his glowing eyes wide with fear. Behind them, the crowd had returned to its business, pretending nothing had happened. The stalls were bright again, laughter rising as if the desperate cry of a child had been nothing but an interruption. The human felt anger stir inside him. How could they return to normal life so easily? How could they ignore a child begging for his mother's life? The boy must have sensed his thoughts, because he whispered, "They will never help me." "Not them." "Why?" the man asked, keeping his voice calm. The boy hesitated, his lips trembling. "They think we are cursed. My father, he is gone. And my mother, they said she should never have lived here. They hate us because we are different." The man's eyes narrowed. Now it made sense. The whispers, the cruel laughter, the way the crowd had pulled back when he stepped forward. It was not just fear of sickness. It was rejection. It was prejudice. Still, he said nothing. He only let the boy speak. The child's words poured out like water from a broken jar. They don't see her kindness. They don't care that she worked for them, cleaned their homes, gave them food when they were hungry. They only see someone to blame. And now she might die. His voice cracked again. He stopped running and dropped to his knees, sobbing into his small hands. The human crouched beside him, resting a steady hand on his shoulder. "You are not alone," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. The boy looked up, his eyes shimmering with tears. He wanted to believe. He wanted to trust. but trust had betrayed him too many times before. Still, something in the human's eyes, something steady, something unshaken, gave him a spark of hope. Slowly, the boy stood again. He wiped his tears roughly with his sleeve and took the man's hand once more. His grip was tighter now, as if holding on to the only lifeline left in his small world. Then, "Come. Please, don't stop walking," he whispered. "I won't," the man replied. They walked on, leaving behind the noise, the whispers, the cruel laughter. The colony around them seemed colder now, the buildings leaning inward as if watching them with unfriendly eyes. Shadows stretched long across the path, and the boy's steps quickened with fear. Every now and then he glanced over his shoulder, as if expecting someone to follow. But the street remained empty. The refusal of the crowd was final. They had washed their hands of the boy and his dying mother. And yet, in that emptiness, there was a strange kind of strength. For the first time in a long while, the boy was not alone. The human walked beside him, silent but steady, and though the boy's heart was still heavy with fear, there was a flicker of something new in his chest, something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The boy's steps slowed as he reached the end of the dark alley. His breathing was uneven, his chest rising and falling with panic. The human followed close behind, his eyes scanning the broken walls, the scattered trash, and the silence that pressed down on them. At last, the boy stopped. He pointed with a trembling hand at a crooked door. It was half broken, hanging on rusted hinges. The wood was cracked, and marks of age and neglect covered it. "She's inside," the boy whispered. His voice was so faint it almost disappeared into the heavy silence. The human looked at the door for a moment, then at the boy. The child's eyes were wide, shining with both fear and desperate hope. Without a word, the man stepped forward and pushed the door open. A cold air flowed out from the house, making the boy shiver. Inside it was dim. The little light that managed to slip in through a broken window fell across the floor, showing dust, broken furniture, and shadows that seemed to cling to the corners. The boy rushed in first, his bare feet tapping against the wooden floor. "Mother, Mother, I brought help," he cried. His small voice echoed strangely in the quiet room, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. On a thin mat at the center of the room, the alien woman lay still. Her skin, once a gentle shade of bronze, was pale now. Her lips trembled faintly as she breathed, shallow and weak. Her eyes were closed, and she did not respond to her son's desperate call. The boy dropped beside her, grabbing her hand and shaking her arm. "Mother, please wake up, please, I found someone, he will help you. You can open your eyes now." His voice cracked, filled with tears, but the woman did not move. The human knelt beside them. He touched her wrist carefully, searching for her pulse. For a few tense seconds there was only silence. Then he felt it, faint but present. "She's alive," he said softly. The boy's eyes lit with hope, but tears still rolled down his cheeks. "But why won't she wake up? She hasn't moved for so long." The man looked closer. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold, and her lips slightly dry. This was no simple fainting. Something was very wrong. The boy pressed his forehead against her hand, whispering shakily, "She worked too hard. She gave me her food when I was hungry. She never rested. And now, she won't open her eyes." The human looked around the room. There was barely anything. No food, no water, no medicine. Only broken shelves, an old chair, and the thin mat on which she lay. The air itself felt heavy, as if the house had not seen joy for years. "Tell me," the human said quietly. "How long has she been like this?" The boy swallowed hard. "Since yesterday. I tried to give her water, I called for the neighbors, but they closed their doors, no one came. I screamed until my throat hurt. And then I went to the street. I had no one else to call." The man's chest tightened. The silence in the house felt louder than the noisiest crowd. It was the silence of abandonment, of a family left to die alone. He touched her forehead. It was cold. He leaned closer, listening to her shallow breath. His eyes narrowed. Something didn't feel right. This was not just exhaustion. The boy watched him anxiously. You can help her, right? The man didn't answer at once. He was thinking. In his travels, he had seen sickness, wounds, and injuries. But this felt different. There was no wound, no fever, no sign of natural illness. He turned his eyes toward the corners of the room again, and then faintly he noticed it, the strange smell, bitter, almost metallic, hidden beneath the dust. His gaze followed the cracks in the wall where dark stains lingered as if something had been spilled and cleaned poorly. His chest grew heavy with realization, but he said nothing yet. Instead, he looked at the boy. Stay close to her. Don't leave her side. The boy nodded quickly. He held his mother's hand tightly, pressing it against his cheek. His small shoulders shook with sobs. Don't leave us, please, don't leave me. The human's eyes softened. He reached out and rested a steady hand on the boy's back. I won't. The silence returned. Only the faint breath of the mother, the boy's quiet sobs, and the distant sound of wind outside filled the air. The house seemed to sink deeper into stillness as if waiting for something, anything to break it. The boy lifted his head suddenly, his tearful eyes meeting the human's. You came, when no one else did. Why? The man looked at the boy, then at the mother lying pale and still. His voice was calm, steady. Because no one should cry alone, he said. The boy's tears came harder, but this time they carried a tiny spark of hope. For the first time in what felt like forever, he wasn't alone in the silent house. The human stayed kneeling beside the alien woman for a long time. His hand rested on her wrist, feeling the faint, weak pulse. It was steady but fragile, like a candle flame ready to vanish with the smallest breeze. The boy sat beside her too, holding her other hand, whispering again and again, Please wake up, mother, and please. The man's eyes narrowed as he looked around the room. Something was wrong. This was not simple hunger. It was not just exhaustion. He had seen tired workers, starving families, even wounded travelers, but this woman's body told a different story. He leaned closer to her lips. Her breathing was shallow, but each breath carried a faint, bitter smell. It reminded him of metal. He frowned, his mind racing. The boy noticed his expression and panicked. What is it? Is she dying? His voice shook, tears forming again. Quiet, the human said softly. She is alive. But I must understand what is hurting her. He stood and began searching the small shelter. There was not much, just broken shelves, a crooked table, and some old clay bowls. Dust covered everything. The man picked up one of the bowls, sniffed it, and immediately felt his stomach tighten. The same bitter smell lingered faintly inside. His eyes sharpened. This was no accident. He checked near the mat where the woman lay. A jug of water stood half empty beside her. He lifted it, sniffed, and confirmed his fear. The water carried the same strange bitterness. The boy's eyes widened. What is it? What's wrong with the water? The human lowered the jug slowly. His voice was calm, but inside anger burned. This is not illness. She has been poisoned. The boy gasped as if the words had struck him like a blade. His small hands shook violently. Poisoned? No, she only drank what I gave her. I filled the jug yesterday from the well. His voice broke, guilt twisting his face. Did I do this to her? The human crouched in front of him, gripping his shoulders firmly. No, you are not to blame. Someone made sure this water carried poison. They wanted her to drink it. They wanted her to suffer. The boy's breathing turned sharp, shallow. His tears spilled fast, but now his fear turned into terror. Why? Why would anyone do this? She never hurt anyone. She only worked for them, gave them food when they were hungry, cared for their children. Why would they want her dead? The man's jaw tightened. He thought of the crowd in the street, The whispers, the mocking laughter, the cruel words about curses and weak bloodlines. He now understood. This was no random act. This was hate. He placed a hand on the boy's back. Listen to me. Whoever did this wanted her gone. And if they wanted her gone, they may come again. They may come for you too. The boy's whole body trembled. He clutched his mother's cold hand tighter, shaking his head violently. No, they can't take her. They can't take me. Please, you won't let them, will you? You promised you wouldn't leave me. The man's gaze hardened. I won't. But you must be brave. And you must trust me. The boy nodded quickly, though fear still clouded his eyes. He wiped his tears with his sleeve, trying to steady his breathing. The human turned back to the mother. She lay motionless, her breath shallow, her lips pale. Time was running out. He knew poisons could kill slowly or suddenly, and he had no medicine with him. He needed to find a way to flush it from her system, or at least keep her alive until help could come. But deep down, he doubted help would ever come. The colony had already turned their backs. The boy whispered, "What can we do? Please and please don't let her die." The human looked around again. On the table, he found a cracked cup with dried herbs stuck to the bottom. He sniffed it. Ordinary herbs, bitter but harmless. Maybe the mother had tried to heal herself before she collapsed. It hadn't worked. He pressed his hand to his forehead, thinking quickly. He had seen villagers use salt water or force someone to vomit after swallowing poison. But here, with the woman so weak, those methods could kill her faster. He cursed under his breath and looked at the boy. She needs clean water, fresh, from somewhere they cannot reach. Do you know any place like that? The boy's eyes darted as he thought. There's a stream outside the colony. My mother used to take me there, but it's far, and they will know if we leave. The man's eyes sharpened. Then we must be careful. They will not stop until she is gone. The boy shivered, pressing against his mother's side. He whispered, "They will come here, won't they?" The human didn't answer immediately. He glanced at the broken window, the cracks in the walls, the heavy silence outside. He felt it too, that strange tension in the air, like eyes watching them from the shadows. Finally, he said quietly, "Yes, they will." The boy's eyes filled with fear again. He clutched the man's arm tightly. "Then don't let them take her, please." The human met his gaze, his voice steady like stone. "They will not take her, not while I stand here." The boy swallowed hard, his small body trembling, but for the first time his fear was mixed with a strange sense of safety. The human's words were not loud, but they carried weight stronger than any promise he had ever heard. And yet, even as those words were spoken, outside the silent house shadows had begun to move. The small shelter grew quieter as the evening deepened. The alien mother lay weak and still on the thin mat, her shallow breaths echoing softly in the silence. The boy sat beside her, holding her hand tightly, his small body trembling. The human knelt near them, his sharp eyes watching both the woman and the broken doorway. Something in the air felt wrong. It was too still, too heavy. The boy noticed it first. His glowing eyes flicked nervously toward the window, then toward the cracks in the wall. He pressed closer to his mother, whispering, "They're out there." The human's gaze followed his. At first there was only darkness outside, the faint light of the colony streets too far away to reach this forgotten corner. But then, through the cracks in the wall, he saw it. Movement. A shadow shifted. Then another. His jaw tightened. They were not alone. The boy's small hand grabbed his sleeve desperately. "They came back," he whispered, his voice shaking. "They don't want her alive." The human placed a steady hand over the boy's, calming him. "Stay quiet, do not move." Outside, the faint crunch of footsteps echoed against the dirt. At least 2, maybe 3. Then silence. Then another crunch. They were circling the house. The man stood slowly, every muscle tense, his eyes fixed on the broken door. He had no weapon, only his bare hands and whatever he could use inside the shelter. But his spirit was unshaken. The boy's fear grew stronger with each sound. "They'll kill her," he whispered, his lips trembling. "They'll kill me too." "I know." The man crouched in front of him, looking him in the eyes. His voice was firm but calm. "Listen. You will not leave her side. No matter what happens, do not run. Do not scream. Hold her hand, and stay low." Tears filled the boy's eyes. "But what about you?" The man gave a faint, steady smile. "I will keep you safe." The boy nodded weakly, though his body shook with fear. He bent down, hugging his mother tightly as though his small arms could shield her from the world. The man straightened and scanned the room quickly. A broken chair lay near the corner. He grabbed one of its legs, pulling it free with a sharp crack. It was rough, but strong enough to be used as a club. The footsteps outside stopped. Silence pressed down again, and then a slow creak came from the door. The shadows shifted, and a hand pushed it open further. The human gripped the chair leg tightly. His heart beat steady, not fast. He had fought before in different places against worse odds, but tonight was not about himself. Tonight was about a boy and his dying mother who had no one else in the world. A figure stepped into the doorway, cloaked in darkness, his face hidden, only his faint glowing eyes visible. Behind him, 2 more shadows moved closer. The man's voice rang out, steady and strong. "This house is not yours, leave." The intruder paused, then a cold laugh echoed in the small space. "A human," the voice hissed. "You should not have come here. This family is cursed. She was meant to die." The boy flinched, pressing his face into his mother's shoulder. "No," he cried softly. "She's not cursed. She's my mother." The human raised the chair leg, his voice sharp as steel. "If you want her gone, you'll have to come through me." The cloaked figure hissed, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Then you will die with them." The 2 shadows outside stepped into the doorway, their shapes tall and menacing. The man stood his ground, his stance firm. The tension was thick, like the air before a storm. The boy peeked from behind his mother's body, tears in his eyes, but something else rising inside him. Hope. For the first time, someone was standing between him and the cruelty of the world, but the fear was still heavy. His whisper broke the silence. "Please, don't let them take her." The man didn't turn back, but his words were steady. "They won't." The shadows moved closer, their steps echoing like thunder in the small shelter. The mother's faint breath filled the silence between them, fragile and weak, as if her life hung on the edge of a blade. The man tightened his grip on the chair leg, his body ready. He knew what was coming. And he knew this fight would decide more than just one life. Because in the silent house, with shadows pressing in, a choice had been made. He would stand, and he would not let them pass. The door banged open with a sharp crack. Dust fell from the broken frame as the 3 intruders stepped inside. Their glowing eyes cut through the darkness, and their footsteps echoed heavy against the wooden floor. The boy gasped, pressing himself tighter against his mother. His small body shook, but he didn't scream. He remembered the human's words. "Stay low. Stay quiet." The human stood in the center of the room, gripping the broken chair leg like a weapon. His shoulders were squared, his stance firm. He did not look afraid, though he was outnumbered. His calmness filled the boy with a strange sense of safety. The tallest of the intruders hissed, "Move aside, human. This is not your fight. The woman must die and the child with her. That is the will of the colony." The man's voice was steady as stone. "Then your colony is rotten, and I will not move." A growl rose from the intruder's throat. With a sharp motion, he lunged forward, swinging a heavy iron rod at the man's head. The human ducked low, the rod swishing over his shoulder. He swung the chair leg upward with force, striking the attacker's ribs. A sharp crack echoed, followed by a grunt of pain. The intruder stumbled back, clutching his side. The other two moved quickly. One circled toward the left, the other toward the right, trying to corner him. The boy's wide eyes followed them in fear. The man shifted his stance, placing himself between the intruders and the boy. His body was the wall that stood before them. The second intruder rushed, throwing a punch. The man blocked with his arm and struck back with the chair leg, smashing it across the alien's jaw. The attacker staggered, but did not fall. The third, one suddenly darted toward the mat, aiming for the mother. The boy screamed, "No!" The human reacted instantly. He spun, grabbed the attacker's arm, and twisted it hard. A bone popped, and the intruder screamed in pain. With a sharp kick, the man sent him crashing into the wall. The boy's eyes widened. He had never seen anyone fight like this. The human was only one man, but he fought like a storm, moving with purpose, never letting fear touch him. But the attackers were not done. The first one, still clutching his ribs, roared with fury and charged again. The man raised the chair leg to block, but the iron rod came crashing down. The wood splintered, breaking in half. The boy gasped. The human was now nearly empty-handed, but he did not falter. He tossed the broken piece aside and grabbed the attacker's arm, slamming his elbow down onto it. Another sickening crack echoed, and the iron rod clattered to the floor. The intruder screamed, collapsing in pain. The second one snarled and tackled the human from behind. They both crashed into the table, shattering it into pieces. Dust and shards flew everywhere. The boy cried out, "Please, don't hurt him!" His tears blurred his vision, but he clung to his mother's hand, whispering, "Wake up, mother, please, he's fighting for us." The man struggled under the weight, but his resolve was like iron. He slammed his head backward, striking the attacker's face. Blood sprayed as the alien howled in pain. The man rolled free, grabbing a shard of broken wood from the table. He thrust it forward, striking the attacker's shoulder. The alien shrieked, staggering back with the sharp piece stuck in his flesh. Only one intruder remained standing, but he was enraged. His glowing eyes burned with fury as he shouted, "You cannot save them, human. We will return until she is gone." The boy trembled. His heart pounded so loudly it felt like thunder. But through his tears he shouted, "You're wrong, he won't let you." The human stood again, blood running from a cut on his forehead, his clothes torn, his hands bruised. Yet he stood tall, breathing steady, eyes burning with defiance. He picked up the fallen iron rod, its weight heavy in his grip. He pointed it toward the last intruder. "If you want them, you'll have to go through me." The attacker roared and rushed forward. Their weapons clashed, the rod against claws, fists against fury. The room shook with their struggle, the floorboards creaking, the air thick with dust. The boy squeezed his mother's hand so tightly his knuckles turned white. He whispered over and over, "Please wake up, mother. Please. He needs you. I need you." The fight raged on. The human struck with the iron rod, blocking each blow, pushing the attacker back inch by inch. But his strength was running thin. His chest heaved, his arms ached, his body screamed in pain. And then, just when it seemed the intruder's claws would tear into him, a faint sound filled the room. A weak voice. "My son." The boy's head snapped up. His mother's lips had moved. Her eyes fluttered, opening slightly. "Mother," he cried, tears of relief streaming down his face. "You're awake." The intruder froze in shock, his eyes wide. The human seized the moment, swinging the iron rod with all his strength. It struck the attacker's head with a thunderous crack. The intruder collapsed, motionless. Silence filled the room again. The boy rushed to his mother, hugging her tightly as tears poured from his eyes. She lifted a weak hand, brushing his hair gently, whispering, "I'm here. I'm still here." The human dropped the iron rod, his chest heaving with exhaustion. Blood dripped from his wounds, but his eyes softened as he watched the reunion. The attackers lay defeated on the floor, the shadows scattered. For now, the family was safe. The room was filled with silence. After the battle, The broken door hung half open. Dust floated in the air and the bodies of the attackers lay still on the floor. The human stood near the center, breathing heavily, blood dripping down his temple, his clothes torn. His hands shook from exhaustion, but his eyes remained sharp, watching the doorway for any sign of more danger. The boy, however, could not look away from the mat. His mother's eyes had fluttered open, weak, tired, but alive. "Mother." His voice cracked with emotion. He fell to his knees beside her, holding her hand against his cheek. "You're awake. You're here with me." Her fingers trembled as she brushed through his messy hair, her lips curved in the faintest smile. "My son, you did not leave me." Fresh tears rolled down the boy's cheeks. He pressed his face into her palm. "I thought I lost you. I screamed, but no one came. No one helped me. I thought I'd be alone forever." Her eyes, heavy with weakness, shifted slowly. They landed on the human standing nearby, bloodied but unbroken. She blinked, confused at first, then whispered, "Who?" The boy turned quickly. "Mother, this is him. He came. He's the only one who helped. Everyone else turned away, but he stayed. He fought for us. He saved us." Her tired gaze softened. She looked at the human, and for a moment her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak, but her strength failed her. Still, her eyes said enough. Gratitude, wonder, disbelief that a stranger would risk everything for them. The human crouched down near her, his voice calm but firm. "You are safe now. Rest. You'll need strength." She closed her eyes briefly, nodding faintly. Her breathing was shallow but steadier than before. The boy, still clutching her hand, turned to the human. His voice shook, but it carried determination. You won't leave us, right? If they come again?" The man placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, steady and strong. "I will not let them harm you, not her, not you." The boy's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief. He hugged the human's arm tightly, whispering, "You're our lifeline. Our only one." Outside, the night air was heavy, carrying faint noises from the colony, streets far away. The attackers had failed, but the danger wasn't gone. The man knew that. If the colony wanted this family erased, they would try again. But for now, inside this broken shelter, something stronger than fear filled the air. The mother stirred again, whispering faintly, "My son, what kept me alive was your voice. I heard you calling. I couldn't leave you." The boy sobbed harder, burying his face in her chest. "I never stopped calling, Mother. I never stopped." The human watched quietly, his heart heavy, but warmed by the sight. He had seen many dark things in his life, but moments like this reminded him why he still chose to stand, even when the world turned cruel. Slowly, the mother tried to sit up, but her body was weak. The man quickly moved, supporting her carefully with his strong arms. She leaned against him, her breath uneven. "You've lost much strength," he said gently, "but you will recover. I will see to it." Her eyes met his again. This time, she found the strength to whisper, "Why? Why would a human risk everything for us?" He was silent for a moment. Then he answered simply, "Because no one else would. And because no child should have to cry alone." Her lips trembled. Tears gathered at the edges of her tired eyes. She had lived through cruelty, rejection, and loneliness. To hear those words now, it broke something inside her, but in a way that healed. The boy clung to both of them, his small hands clutching his mother's arm and the human's sleeve. His voice was soft but full of certainty. "We're not alone anymore." The man placed a steady hand on the boy's head, then on the mother's shoulder. "You are not. Not while I draw breath." The mother closed her eyes again, leaning into her son. The boy's tears soaked her clothing, but she smiled faintly, whispering, "Then we still have a future." The human rose slowly, his tired body aching but his spirit unbroken. He looked at the broken door, the shattered furniture, the faint shadows beyond the walls. The world outside was still dangerous, the colony still cruel. But inside this house, something had changed. The boy no longer wept alone. The mother was no longer abandoned. And the human, though only one man, had become more than a stranger. He was their shield, their lifeline, their hope. As the night deepened, the boy finally rested his head against his mother's chest, still holding her hand tightly. His eyes closed, his breathing soft, but a smile stayed on his face. For the first time in many days, he felt safe. The mother, weak but awake, whispered one last time to the human before sleep took her, "Thank you for giving him back his hope." The man said nothing. He only sat by the doorway, keeping watch with silent determination, his shadow long against the broken wall. For he knew this fight was not over. But tonight, in this small shelter, the battle had been won. And in the heart of one alien boy and his mother, a single human had become the difference between despair and life.